I accidentally found out my parents kept my older brother in a mental hospital for years and never told me he existed. It started with a broken water heater. Our basement flooded the night of March 9th. I remember because it was my mom's birthday, and we had just come back from an awkward dinner at a mediocre Italian place. She didn't say much that night. I thought she was mad at Dad, like always. The next morning, I went down to the basement to check for water damage. I figured I'd move a few boxes, maybe salvage some old Christmas decorations. What I didn't expect to find was a locked filing cabinet wedged behind a broken-down treadmill and a stack of yellowing National Geographics. It was old, rusted around the handles, one of those heavy beige ones you only see in doctors' offices or outdated school buildings. And it was locked with a small keyhole. I should have left it alone, but curiosity is a disease. When I asked my mom about it, she just brushed it off with, "Oh, just some boring tech stuff from before you were born." Her tone was sharp, almost defensive. I noticed her hands trembled slightly when she said it. I didn't press. But that night, when my parents were asleep, I came back down with a flashlight and a flathead screwdriver. It took maybe 5 minutes to pop the lock. The cabinet door groaned when I opened it. There were 6 folders, all labeled in my mom's tidy cursive. 5 of them were what you'd expect: old medical bills, mortgage papers, my dad's ancient job applications. But the 6th folder had no label, just a faint G in the corner. Inside were printouts of medical records, dozens of them, from a place called Shady Pines Residential Treatment Center, located 2 towns over. The name didn't register at first, but then I saw it. Patient, Jacob T. Whitaker. Date of admission, May 18th, 2004. Diagnosis, paranoid schizophrenia with violent tendencies. Next of kin, David and Eleanor Whitaker, parents. My hands went cold. Whitaker was my last name. David and Eleanor, those were my parents. And Jacob was no one I'd ever heard of. I sat down on the damp concrete floor and flipped through the rest of the papers. There were incident reports, medication charts, letters from doctors. One note, dated 2012, mentioned an altercation with another patient over a game of chess. Another, from 2015, described delusional episodes involving a younger brother named Ben. My name is Ben. I don't remember how long I sat there reading. An hour? 2? The basement was quiet, except for the occasional creak of pipes or dripping water. I kept expecting to hear footsteps above me, to hear my dad shout down, "What the hell are you doing?" But no one came. That night I couldn't sleep. My mind raced in loops. Who was Jacob? Why had my parents never told me I had a brother? Why was he institutionalized, and why had they kept it secret for nearly 2 decades? The next morning at breakfast, I couldn't hold it in. "Who's Jacob?" I asked, voice low but steady. Mom froze with a spoon halfway to her mouth. My dad looked up from his phone. Silence. Then, "Where did you hear that name?" my mom asked, her voice sharp. "I found the file," I said. "In the basement." My dad stood. "That's private. You lied to me," I said. "My whole life. I have a brother. You never said a damn word." "We did what was best," my mom snapped. "You wouldn't understand. You were a child. I'm 24 now," I shot back. "Try me." They told me everything, or at least, their version of everything. Jacob was my older brother by 6 years. I was born when he was already struggling violent tantrums, paranoia, hallucinations. By the time I was 3, he had attacked our babysitter with a kitchen knife. No one was seriously hurt, but it was enough. They institutionalized him at 11 years old. I had no memory of him. Mom said they made the choice to erase his Jacob from our daily life. No photos, no stories, no mention. It was safer that way. Easier. "You were so young," my dad said, finally sitting down. I didn't say anything. My throat felt like sandpaper. That night, I looked up Shady Pines. It was still open, still operating. I called them. "I'm looking for information on a patient," I said. "Jacob Whitaker. I'm his brother." The receptionist paused. "You're listed as an emergency contact now," she said. "That must mean your parents submitted a transfer of guardianship." "What?" I hung up and went back to the basement. There it was. A form, tucked behind the folders, dated 2 weeks ago. Transfer of emergency medical authority to Benjamin T. Whitaker Dar. They hadn't just lied to me. They were preparing to hand him off to me. 3 days later, I was standing in the gravel parking lot of Shady Pines Residential Treatment Center. staring at the building like it was something out of a forgotten horror film. It didn't help that it was raining a steady, thin drizzle that soaked my hoodie and made the gravel crunch like wet cereal under my sneakers. The place wasn't creepy in the classic way. No Gothic architecture or barred windows. It looked like an old, overgrown elementary school. Single story, wide windows, tan bricks. But something about it felt off, like the air around it was too still. I checked in at the front desk with my ID, nervously tapping my fingers against the counter. "You're Jacob's brother?" the receptionist asked. I nodded. She didn't smile. "Have you visited before?" I shook my head. "First time." She clicked something on her keyboard, then picked up the phone. "Dr. Halston?" "Yeah, he's here." "First time visit." They took my phone, had me sign a waiver, and walked me through a metal detector. Then a tall man in a navy cardigan, Dr. Halston, I guessed, met me in the hallway. He had deep lines under his eyes and held a clipboard like it was glued to his hand. "Then yes," he said with a cautious, tight-lipped smile. "Thank you for coming. We've been expecting you." That phrase didn't sit right with me. We walked down a hallway that smelled like bleach and something else, something stale and vaguely metallic. Each room we passed had a small rectangular window on the door. Some of them had patients sitting inside, staring out with blank expressions. Others were dark. "Jacob's condition has stabilized somewhat in recent years, Dr. Halston said as we walked, but he remains under close supervision. It's rare he gets visitors. Your parents haven't been in contact since early 2018. I blinked. Wait, they told me they just updated guardianship last week. They did, but it was filed remotely, via their lawyer. No personal contact. I didn't know what to say. I was already regretting being here. Then we stopped. Room 14B. "He's awake," Halston said, tapping on the door gently. "Jacob, your brother's here." A voice came from inside. "You mean the imaginary one?" Halston sighed and opened the door. The room was small, but not a cell. A single bed, a shelf with some worn books, a window with heavy plastic blinds, and sitting cross-legged on the bed, wearing gray scrubs, was a man who looked maybe 30, but had the eyes of someone older. He looked at me like I was a ghost. I stepped inside, unsure what to do with my hands. "Jacob," I said. "I'm Ben. I know who you are," he interrupted. His voice was low. "Controlled. Too controlled. They said you weren't real, but I always knew." He smiled, not the warm kind. "The kind you get when someone's cornering a cat. I had dreams about you," he added. "You were always by the swing set, with red sneakers." I stared at him. I had red sneakers as a kid. I wore them until they fell apart. "Doctor," Halston gave a little cough behind me. "I'll give you both a few minutes," he said and stepped out, pulling the door mostly closed behind him. I took a slow breath. "Why didn't they tell me about you?" Jacob chuckled. "Because I'm the family shame. They wanted a do-over. And that was you." I sat down on the chair in the corner. "I didn't even know you existed until last week." "I know." He scratched at a spot on his arm. "They said if I was good, if I behaved, maybe one day I'd get to meet you. But that was a lie too." He paused. "How old are you now?" 24. His face twisted. "Jesus. You're older than I was when they put me in here." Something cracked in my chest when he said that. We talked for maybe 20 minutes. At first it was awkward, Jacob veering between lucid and not. He kept referencing things I didn't understand. The man in the silver car. The twins in the drain. Things he said lived inside his walls, but he also remembered details: the name of our elementary school, the park near our old house, even my third-grade teacher. "I used to watch you from the hallway," he said. "Back when I was still at home. You used to build Lego castles. I'd sit outside your door and listen." I felt a lump in my throat. "I'm sorry." "For what?" "For not knowing, for not being there." Jacob's expression softened, just a bit. "That wasn't your fault," he said. "You were just a kid. They made the choice, not you." Then he leaned forward. "But they are trying to get rid of me now. I heard them talking to the staff." I blinked. "What do you mean?" "They think if I'm your problem, they can wash their hands of me, that you'll put me in some state home or leave me here forever." I didn't respond, because deep down, that's exactly what I was afraid of too. Before I left, he handed me something. A folded piece of paper. "Don't read it until you're home." I promised I wouldn't. I kept that promise for about an hour. When I got home, I unfolded it. It was a letter, written in blocky handwriting, like he hadn't held a pen in years. It said, "Ben, I don't want pity, but I want the truth. Please don't believe everything they tell you. Not about me. Not about what happened. Go to 137 Birch Lane. It's the old house, basement, behind the water heater. Look for the red box. J. I read it 3 times. Then I grabbed my keys and got in the car. It was close to 10 p.m. when I pulled up to the house on Birch Lane. The neighborhood had changed since I'd last been here, but not by much. The trees were taller, a few houses had solar panels now, and one of them had a gaudy metal flamingo in the front yard. But their house looked almost exactly the same. Same cracked walkway, same faded teal shutters, same porch lights, still flickering. I parked across the street, engine off. My heart pounded like I was about to break into a stranger's home, not the one I'd technically grown up in. I hadn't been back since college, and even then, only for a quick Thanksgiving visit. After that, things got distant. Calls once a month, then every other, then none. And now I was trespassing. I got out and crossed the street, hood pulled up. The house was dark, empty. The lawyer had said Mom and Dad moved to Florida 2 weeks ago, a semi-retirement home, whatever that meant. But there was still a for sale sign stuck in the lawn. The lockbox on the doorknob was still open, probably used recently by a realtor. I pressed the door open. It creaked like it always had. Inside, it smelled like dust, old carpet, and faint traces of perfume. The living room was mostly cleared out, just a few boxes in the corner and a yellowing recliner. It looked like they'd packed in a hurry. Not a goodbye and escape. I walked quietly, as if the house itself might wake up and scream. Every creak of the floorboards brought back memories I didn't want. Sitting on the stairs while Dad yelled. Mom drinking wine at 2 p.m., eyes glassy. Being told to go to my room when Jacob acted out. No one ever said what acted out meant. I was too young to remember specifics. Just flashes, shouting, slamming doors, once waking up with a bloody nose and no memory of how I got it. I reached the basement door and hesitated. This part had always freaked me out as a kid. It was cold and damp and had that weird buzzing sound that came from the old water heater. But I opened the door anyway and clicked on the light. It buzzed, flickered, then held steady. The stairs creaked under my weight as I descended. The basement was mostly empty, a few paint cans, a rusted toolbox, and the water heater still humming in the back corner. I walked toward it, my boots thudding softly against the concrete. Behind it, just like Jacob said, was a loose panel. A plywood board, maybe covering up a crawl space. I pulled it loose and set it aside. There it was, a red metal box, slightly rusted, but intact, with a small clasp lock on the front. I swallowed hard, heart pounding, and picked it up. No key, no code, just a thin metal clasp. It snapped open easily, and I flipped the lid. Inside was a stack of papers, dozens of them old, wrinkled, some stained, drawings, notes, letters, a few Polaroids curled with age. At the very bottom was a school notebook. I flipped it open. Jacob A. Stone's 6th grade journal. The first few pages were innocent enough drawings of superheroes, notes about school lunch, then darker entries. Mom said not to tell anyone about the bruise. Said if I did, we'd both be in trouble. Dad stayed in my room last night. I told him I didn't like it. He got mad. I heard Ben crying in his room but didn't go in. He looked scared after. Why did they lie and say I'm sick? I'm not sick. They're sick. They said if I told anyone, I'd go away forever. That I'd forget how to be human. I stopped reading. My hand was shaking. This wasn't acting out. This was abuse. Systematic. Long-term. And not just toward Jacob. I flipped through the rest of the box. More drawings, one of a figure standing over 2 kids, one cowering, one with red shoes, another of Jacob with big red X's over his eyes. One was labeled, "What They See." Another said, "What's real?" And then the Polaroids. One was of me, maybe 5 years old, sitting on the porch. In the corner was a shadow tall male, holding something in his hand. I stared at it until I realized what it was. A belt. Another Polaroid was Jacob in the bathtub. His back was to the camera. Bruises lined his spine. The third was blank. Or at least it looked blank at first. But if you tilted it, you could just make out 2 kids in a hallway mirror, both with wide, terrified eyes. And behind them, our father. I sat down hard on the floor, the box in my lap. They'd lied, not just to me, but to everyone. Doctors, teachers, family, and they'd erased Jacob, painted him as the unstable one, while covering their own rot with plastic smiles and church Sundays. Jacob wasn't crazy. Not entirely, anyway. He was traumatized, gaslit, left to rot in a facility while I got the normal life. and I'd never even known. Back upstairs, I took the box with me, locked the front door behind me, and sat in my car with the heater on, staring at the wheel. Everything felt heavier now, like my lungs were full of wet concrete. Jacob had been right. He wasn't the problem. They were. And now I had proof. But the question was, what the hell was I going to do with it? I didn't sleep that night. I sat in the motel room with the red box on the table, its contents spread around me like evidence in a cold case. My phone buzzed twice around midnight, once from a group chat I never answered, and once from a number I didn't recognize. I didn't answer either. I just stared at the photo of Jacob's back. Those bruises. The way the Polaroid was taken, like someone wanted to document it but was afraid to be caught. I kept flipping the notebook open, trying to make sense of what I'd read, trying to convince myself that maybe Jacob had exaggerated, but every new page made that harder. By morning, I'd made a decision. They weren't getting away with this. Not anymore. My first stop was the county records office. I wanted to know where Jacob had been moved. The last time I asked Mom about him, maybe 5 years ago, she'd said, "He's in a long-term care facility. It's better this way." And then she changed the subject to real estate prices in Boca Raton. After some polite pretending and flashing of my ID, I found a paper trail: medical transfers, guardianship records, discharge files. Jacob had been moved around 4 times. The final listed location was a facility in rural Indiana. Not even a hospital, a behavioral rehabilitation center, with a low Yelp rating and one very unsettling review. My brother left here thinner, quieter, and afraid of showers. "Don't send anyone here you love." I stared at that for a long time. Then I called. They said Jacob had left 2 years ago. No forwarding address? No one came to pick him up? I asked. No. The receptionist said. He signed himself out when he turned 18. My hands tightened around the phone. "Do you have any idea where he went?" She paused. "Only thing I can tell you is he asked us for a map of downtown Chicago before he left." Downtown Chicago. A needle in a haystack. But I had a lead, and I wasn't alone. I remembered someone from Jacob's past, Mrs. Adler, his 6th grade teacher. She'd been one of the only adults who ever tried to stand up for him. She once called Child Protective Services after Jacob showed up to class with a busted lip. CPS ruled it an accident, but she didn't drop it. She was the reason he got a psych eval in the first place. Ironically, that led to him being sent away, but she'd meant well. I tracked her down through a Facebook group for retired educators and sent her a message. To my surprise, she responded in under an hour. "Benjamin, I can't believe it's you. What's going on?" I told her everything. Not the dramatic parts, just that I found Jacob's journal, and that I thought he'd been seriously wronged. I asked if she'd ever heard from him since. Once. A letter. About a year ago. He said he was in Chicago, working odd jobs. Said he forgave me. He didn't leave a return address. I always felt like I failed him. I didn't know what to say to that, so I said the only thing that felt honest. We both did. That night, I booked a flight to Chicago. I packed light just to carry on, the red box, and my old laptop. As the plane took off, I stared out the window and replayed it all. The weird silences at family dinners. The way Mom used to say, "Jacob's not like you. He's difficult." The fact that I just went along with it. I felt sick. Not just with guilt, but with a hunger I hadn't felt in years. I wanted the truth. I wanted Jacob to look me in the eye and tell me everything, even if it shattered what was left of our family. Especially if it did. I spent the first day in Chicago walking, just walking, downtown, under the L tracks, into alleyways, past shelters, into diners and bus stops, showing Jacob's photo to anyone who'd look. Nobody recognized him. But on the second day, I got lucky. A guy working at a 24-hour gas station on West Van Buren stared at the photo for a long time. "Yeah," he said. "That dude was here maybe 3 months ago. Comes in sometimes for smokes and instant ramen. Quiet guy. Pays cash. Sleeps in that old church down by the river." He pointed. "If he's still in town, that's your best bet." I found the church the next morning. It had been abandoned for years, with stained glass windows boarded up and weeds growing out of the brickwork. But the side door was pried open just enough for someone to slip in. I stepped inside. It was dark and cold, and smelled like mold. But in the far corner past the broken pews and graffiti was a sleeping bag. And next to it, a red plastic bowl, a few books, and a backpack. "Jacob?" I called. Silence. I waited. Then from the shadows, a figure stepped out. Thin, bearded, hair to his shoulders. His eyes were sunken but sharp. He stared at me like I was a ghost. Ben, he said, voice raspy. I nodded. He didn't move, didn't smile, just blinked. Then, took you long enough. Jacob and I stood there, frozen in the half-light bleeding through cracks in the boards. Neither of us moved. Neither of us blinked. It felt like time had folded in on itself and brought us back to being two boys in a hallway, waiting for someone else to yell first, but no one did. So I said the only thing I could think of. I found your journal. His eyes narrowed, but he didn't look surprised. Just resigned. Figured you would, he said. His voice was rough. Too many cigarettes, not enough sleep. Took you long enough. You left it in Mom's attic. With the red box, he looked away. Didn't mean for you to see that. But you didn't throw it out either. That got a reaction, just a twitch of the jaw. Then he walked past me and sat on the broken steps of what used to be the pulpit. He pulled a crumpled pack of cigarettes from his coat, lit one, and took a long drag. Why are you here, Ben? I sat opposite him. The air between us was full of dust and history and 100 things we'd never said. Because I didn't know, I said quietly. Not all of it. I should have asked more. I should have seen it. He snorted. You saw enough. No, Jacob. I didn't see. You think I wanted to believe Mom and Dad over you? That I chose to be the golden child? I didn't know what was real. He exhaled slowly, the smoke curling around his head like a halo gone wrong. You think it matters now? I think it should. He looked at me, really looked, and for the first time I saw it, the hurt, the bitterness, but also something softer. Sadness, maybe, or something older. Like grief. I don't want your guilt, Ben. You don't get to show up 10 years later with apologies and expect things to mean something. I don't expect anything, I said. But I need to understand. Jacob flicked ash onto the stone floor. What's there to understand? They didn't like me. I wasn't easy. I mouthed off. Got bad grades. They decided I was broken. And you were easy to love. I wasn't trying to be, well, you were, and I hated you for it. Silence. I didn't flinch. I couldn't, because deep down, I already knew. I'd always known. I get that, I said. I really do. He looked stunned for a second. Then he laughed, not a joyful laugh, but a tired, brittle one. Jesus. You were always the diplomat. I'm not here to fix you, Jacob. I read what they did to you, what they let happen. That place they sent you to. His face went hard. Don't. You were 16, Jacob, and they signed you over like property. His hands tightened into fists. You think I don't know that? You think I haven't spent every night since trying to unfeel it? I swallowed hard. I want to help. No, you want to feel better. He was right, and wrong, but mostly right. I lowered my voice. Do you have somewhere safe to stay? He laughed again, bitterer this time. This is safe enough. You don't have to live like this. And what? Come back with you? Play the prodigal son? You think Mom and Dad are gonna bake a cake and welcome me with open arms? No. I think they're going to pretend nothing happened, like they always do. He looked at me again. And you? I'm not them. Maybe not. But you didn't stop them either. That one landed deep. I nodded slowly. No, I didn't. He stared at me for a long time. Then he stubbed out the cigarette and leaned back on his elbows. You remember the rabbit? He asked suddenly. I blinked. What rabbit? The one I found in the yard. Its leg was broken. I was maybe 11. I tried to recall. Faint memory. Jacob with a shoebox, whispering to something inside it. You tried to keep it alive. Yeah. Fed it lettuce. Wrapped the leg in gauze. Didn't matter. It died that night. I didn't say anything. He looked at the ceiling, eyes distant. Dad saw me crying over it. You remember what he said? I shook my head. He said, "That's what happens when you get attached to broken things." My chest tightened. Jacob sat upright again, staring me down. That was the first time I realized he was talking about me. I wanted to say something, anything, but nothing felt big enough to meet that moment. So I just asked, "What do you want now, Jacob? What would help?" He thought about it. Then he said, "Not being forgotten. That's a start." I nodded. And then I reached into my bag and pulled out the red box. Then let's tell your story. All of it. We sat in that crumbling church until the light faded entirely. Just two brothers. One with a past he couldn't run from. The other with a future full of guilt. But between us, on the old stone floor, lay the red box. That box had once been a secret. Now, it was a blueprint. Inside were documents, letters, photos, hospital records, even a police report, one I never knew existed. There were names I didn't recognize, institutions I'd never heard of. What shocked me most was how much documentation there was. Jacob had kept it all. "What's this one?" I asked, holding up a form with a faded header. "Clearview Behavioral Modification Center." "That's the place," Jacob said flatly. I read it. "Why does it say voluntary admittance?" He looked at me, deadpan. "Because they couldn't legally commit me without my signature. So they lied to me, said I was going to some kind of wilderness therapy program, that it was only for a weekend. They gave me papers to sign. I signed. My throat tightened. And then they kept you there for 8 months. He nodded once. 8 months, 3 days. He'd had counted. I sat back. "Jesus, Jacob." He pulled out a crumpled notebook, not the journal I'd found earlier, but another, smaller one. He flipped it open, then handed it to me. It was full of names. Some had last names. Some had just nicknames. A few had crosses next to them. I didn't have to ask what those meant. "These are the kids I met in there," Jacob said. "Some got out. Some didn't. Some were worse off than me. I started tracking them when I got out." I looked up at him. "Why?" He looked away. "Because someone had to remember them." I stared down at the notebook, then back at him. A thought started to form, risky, stupid, dangerous. But once it rooted, it wouldn't let go. "We could do something with this." He raised an eyebrow. "Like what?" "Tell the story. All of it. Make it public. Expose the place. Expose Mom and Dad." He chuckled dryly. "What? You think the world's gonna care about some washed-up middle-aged ex-con and his golden boy brother with a conscience? If we can prove they knew what they were doing, if we can show patterns of abuse, it's not just about you anymore. It's about them. The system. We start with Clearview." He looked at me for a long time, then down at the notebook, then back at me. "What would that even look like? We track down the other kids, the ones who'll talk. We build a case. Maybe we find a journalist. Maybe a lawyer. Hell, maybe we do it ourselves. Reddit, YouTube, TikTok, whatever. Real stories, real proof. The kind that can't be ignored." Jacob looked skeptical, but I saw something shift behind his eyes, a spark. Not hope exactly, but something close. "You think people would listen? If we make them." He was quiet for a while. Then he reached into his jacket, pulled out a flash drive and tossed it to me. "What's on this?" I asked. "Recordings from inside the center." I had a burner phone. Hid it in the vent. Got some of the staff on tape. One guy talking about restraints, another mocking a girl for self-harming. I stared at the drive like it was radioactive. "You kept all this for 10 years? "I kept it because no one else would." We didn't sleep that night. We made a plan instead. Phase 1, research. We'd find out if Clearview was still active, who owned it, who funded it, if they had other locations. Phase 2, outreach. We'd contact former patients, ask for statements. Not everyone would talk, but someone would. Phase 3, exposure. We'd tell Jacob's story first, then the others, in his words. In their words. No embellishments, just truth. And maybe, just maybe, we'd finally break through. But before all that, there was one thing we had to do. "Are you ready to see them?" I asked. He didn't answer for a moment. Then, slowly, he nodded. "Let's go visit our parents." We didn't go the next day. We needed time. So, for the first time in over a decade, Jacob came home with me. I gave him the guest room. He didn't sleep in the bed, just curled up on the floor with a blanket. He said it felt safer that way. The next morning I made coffee and found him in the kitchen, scrolling on his burner phone. "Clearview's still active," he said without looking up. "But they changed their name. Now it's called North Horizon Youth Solutions. Same building, same staff." I stared. "That's actually perfect. Rebranding is a sign they're hiding something." We started digging. In just a few hours we found 3 lawsuits, all quietly settled, all involving minors, all sealed. But Jacob had more. He pulled up a blog written by a woman named Carly Est. I remembered her name from the journal. She'd been in the center with him. "She's local," Jacob said. "She works in advocacy now. She wrote about her time there." "Did you ever talk to her?" He shook his head. "Too scared." "Well, maybe now's the time." We sent her an email. Within 20 minutes, she responded. "Jacob, holy shit. I never thought I'd hear from you." "Yes, I'll help. Whatever you need." We were in. By the end of the day, we had 6 people willing to go on the record. Carly introduced us to a journalist. She knew someone who specialized in exposing institutional abuse. By the next week, we were on a call with him. "I've seen a lot," the journalist said. "But this could blow up. You're sitting on a time bomb." We gave him everything: the notebook, the flash drive, the letters. He was stunned. "This isn't just a story," he said. "This is a goddamn indictment." And then he asked a question we hadn't thought about. "Are your parents still involved in the program?" Jacob and I exchanged a look. "We don't know," I said, "but we're about to find out." 2 weeks after Jacob came back into my life, we stood on the porch of the house we grew up in. It hadn't changed much, same cracked siding, same paint-chipped railing, same hummingbird wind chime our mother insisted was classy. It sounded like nails on glass. "Ready?" I asked. Jacob stared at the door. His jaw was tight. "No, but let's do it anyway." I rang the doorbell. Our father opened the door. He hadn't aged well. A gray beard clung unevenly to his face, and his eyes were clouded not just with age, but something harder to name. He froze when he saw us, especially Jacob. "What the hell?" Dad muttered. "You've got some nerve showing your face here." Jacob didn't flinch. "Nice to see you too, Dad." Then Mom appeared behind him. Her expression somewhere between a gasp and a sneer twisted into something rehearsed. Guilt, maybe, or the performance of it. "Oh, Jacob, you're back. For now," he said. I stepped forward. "We need to talk." All four of us. They hesitated, but curiosity or fear outweighed hostility. They stepped aside. Inside, nothing had changed. The same stiff sofa, same coffee table stained with old wine rings, same framed photo of Jacob at 14, just before everything went to hell. We sat. Dad stood with his arms crossed. "What's this about?" Jacob opened the red box. He set it on the table. Slowly, deliberately, he pulled out the file with the Clearview logo on it. "You know what this is," he said. Dad's face twitched. "No idea. Don't lie to me." Mom shifted in her seat. "Jacob, you were troubled. We did what we had to do. You sold me to a torture camp." Dad scoffed. "You think we wanted that? We paid for help. That's what they said it was." "You knew. You signed the documents. You ignored my letters. You wrote things that weren't true," Mom whispered. "You were unwell." Jacob's eyes narrowed. "I recorded them. I have their voices, laughing about the restraints, about the humiliation." Dad's arms dropped. "You're bluffing." Jacob stood up, pulled out the flash drive and held it out. "I'm not. And guess what? You're still connected to them. Don't play stupid. We found your donation records. Mom's name is on a board of advisors for North Horizon. Same place. New name." Their silence was deafening. I stood too. "We're going public. With everything. And we're going to make damn sure your involvement is part of the story. You'd ruin your own family," Mom whispered, genuinely stunned. "You did that already," Jacob said. Dad tried a final push. "You're bitter. That's what this is. A tantrum. You want revenge." "No," Jacob said quietly. "I want the truth. I want accountability. You don't get to bury what you did and pretend it's dead." Mom suddenly started crying. "Maybe it was real. Maybe not." "I was scared," she choked. "You frightened me. You screamed. You hit things. We didn't know what to do. You didn't have to disappear me," he said. We stood there for a long moment. Then Jacob reached into his pocket and placed the red lighter from the journal on the table. "I brought this back to remind you what you burned." Then we left. The next 2 weeks were a blur. The journalist went to work. The story dropped online and spread like wildfire. Exposé, the rebranded horror of North Horizon Youth Solutions. It was everywhere: Twitter, Reddit, podcasts, TikTok deep dives. Survivors came forward in droves. Some used their real names. Others sent anonymous accounts. Jacob gave a filmed interview. Carly did too. The recordings were released. So were the internal emails Carly had secretly saved years ago. The pressure mounted. Within days, the facility was temporarily closed for investigation. By the end of the month, lawsuits reopened. A congressional representative called for a federal inquiry into troubled teen facilities. They vanished from the advisory board. Dad deleted his Facebook. Mom took a leave of absence from her church committee. No apology, no accountability, but at least finally some consequences. Update 2 months later, Jacob lives in a small apartment now. He's got a cat named Whiskey, and a fridge full of energy drinks and frozen burritos. He started writing a book not just about what happened to him, but about everyone else too. The ones who didn't make it out. The ones who did, but barely. Sometimes we get emails from people who say the story helped them, or that it convinced their parents not to send their kid to a similar program. That's what Jacob wanted. To stop the cycle. I asked him once if he forgave them, our parents. He lit a cigarette, exhaled and said, "No. But I'm done letting them live rent-free in my head. I think that's enough. I visit him every week. We play old video games and argue about pizza toppings. We're brothers again. Not perfect, not healed, but honest. And that, finally, feels like justice. If you like this video, please subscribe for more.